The folks they join to testify, to praise his name, to glorify the God who works such wonders in their lives. They told of miracles he has done, of love and peace and battles won, their never-ending songs of
The Lord looked down from his holy place on high. He looked down from heaven to earth. He heard the groans of prisoners and set free those who were condemned to die. And so his name will be proclaimed in Zion, and he will be praised in Jerusalem, when nations and kingdoms come together and worship our Lord.
My name is Elijah Gatuta. I'm from Zambia, and I've decided to share my story today. I was reminded last night of what God spoke in Isaiah chapter 60 verse 22, where it says, when the time is right, I, the Lord, will do a new thing. And I just felt, I've kept this testimony for some time now, and I just felt God is telling me to say this is the right time, so I can share my story, because I know there is a lot of people out there that would obviously benefit from my story, and just to see, the goodness of God and how God can change situations, for the better. Just like what in the book of Genesis chapter 50, I think somewhere there when Joseph was actually in prison, and then when he came out and all his brothers that saw him had to come, they were so afraid, and then he said, what the enemy intended for evil, but actually God had to turn it around for the better. So yeah, it's not about me, it's about what God actually did, and I believe that it's going to change your lives as you just, give a little bit of time and listen to this testimony. So my life started, I think it was 1995 when this story that I'm sharing started. There was a situation where when I was born, both my parents were not working, so they couldn't actually send me to school, to go and do what I was planning to do. So I only ended up to grade 10, so I couldn't go further. So I decided to go and join them at the village, so I can just maybe become a farmer, of which I am today, just to make a living out of the ground, and things like that. So I joined them. And when I went there, life was so good. I started learning how to build. I built my own little house. And at that time, we had no water. So we had to dig our own well. And we had water. So as I was staying there at my parents', I went into town one day, and then I found one of my cousins was just kind of walking around the streets. I was not expecting to see him there. Then he started explaining to me to say, he doesn't have anywhere to stay. So can he come with me to where I'm staying? So I'm like, sure. So that's how he came, and my father was asking him some questions, and he didn't open up. Actually, he was running away from a serious crime that he had committed in the Copper Belt. We didn't know about that. So all I knew was this guy, I was with him in starting like grade 4, 5, 6, 7. We were in the same class, so I knew him very well. I didn't even know that he was actually a criminal. I could tell sometimes he was just like, I'm going to town, I'll come back. He went and he came back. So it was like a normal routine. I didn't suspect anything. So one day, he had planned something with his friends. So they planned to go and rob like a cigarette outlet where they were selling a lot of cigarettes and stuff like that. But he didn't even tell me. So all he asked me was, can you come with me to town and help me, carry some stuff that I want to be dealing with, like a business of some sort. So my heart was not happy. I'm like, no, I'm not coming. But then my mother overheard us discussing that we wanted to go to town. So she's like, why don't you take some corn and then you can go and take it to the hammer mill so that they can make mealie meal out of it. I'm like, sure. Since I'm going there for a purpose, let's go. So that's how I went with that guy. When we went into town, he linked up with some friends. And then they said, can you just come with us into the cigarette store? So I'm like, sure. I put my little plastic bag of corn at the ground and we went inside. Just as the last guy entered the shop, the guy with the bag closed it and produced the gun. So I was like frightened. I was like trying to go and open the door. Then my cousin called my name. Hey, Elijah, he's gonna shoot you, just wait. So that's how I saw them stage the robbery, and they went to open the safe and everybody had to lie down. I was just standing in the corner looking, it's like a movie happening for real. So then when they went outside there, each one of them just went their own way. So I was like, I didn't know what to do because I didn't plan for anything. They were arrested somewhere, and I was also arrested because I didn't know what was happening. And then the bad part happened when one of the witness inside there said that I was the one with the gun. So when the police was asking me, like, where's the gun? I was looking at them laughing and like, which gun? Like, oh, you are trying to play with us, so we're gonna teach you that what you've done is something bad. I'm like, I'm clueless. I don't know anything. Are you Elijah? Say, yes, that's my name. Like, yeah, Elijah was the one with the gun, so give us the gun. I became like a ringleader instantly because now the real robbers, they were just kind of like looking at me. Now I was the one that was being questioned. Where's the gun? Give us the gun. So I was beaten, like, I was really beaten. So, but it didn't really, ring in my head like that robbery, I'm part of it. So I was like, I don't know what was happening. So they just kind of started giving me a beating and a beating. My body was swollen such that even when my father came to see me, he couldn't recognize me. So they took me to a separate room and they left the real robbers somewhere so that they can actually dig the information out of me and give them a gun. Man, they beat, I think it was almost like 2 hours or something. Just this one comes and beat me with the butt of the gun, and I was like, I was ready to die. I'm like, let them just kill me, because I don't know what they're talking about. And then after a few hours, then the police were called to go somewhere because some guy just dropped a gun with a bag and clothes in their toilet, like those little out toilets. That's when I had a relief. So the police now had to run and see where the gun was, and they found it. So I'm like, that's what I was telling you. I was not the one with the gun, but you are Elijah. I say, yeah, that's my name. Elijah was in there. That day, I never went home. I was taken to police. They still treated me as one of the serious, dangerous. And these two robbers, they didn't even want to say that I was actually not even part of their plan. So they just said, they thought that the case would come on me and then they'll be let go. But it didn't happen like that because now more evidence came from the other witnesses to say these are the ones that were actually taking money and loading the boxes. And one of the guys says I was just standing by the door. That's why they said I was the ringleader, because it was like I was just commanding them, like, hey, do this, do that, do. To cut the long story short, we were committed to High Court. Then we went to the High Court there. The judge found us all guilty of aggravated robbery and sentenced us to death. I was like, I don't know what this life is going to look like. From this guy who was just a farmer somewhere trying to go into town to become a ringleader of these robbers and to ended up to be sentenced to death. I didn't even understand what that was. I was like, what is sentenced to death? It's like, oh, they're going to hang you because of what you did, Then I'm like, no ways, Then I went there, and the good part is because I grew up with both my parents and they loved the Lord. Even if I didn't really commit my life, but there was a seed that my father planted inside of me to knowing that, actually God is there. He exists. And my mother never went to school, so she was always teaching me things by showing examples, because she didn't have an opportunity of reading the Bible or reading. She didn't have that knowledge of reading, so most of the things she was doing, I was learning them by example, like she was actually doing it. If she says she loved Jesus, you could tell from her expression, the way she was treating us, I could tell that she really loved Jesus. So then those thoughts were coming to me, like, actually there's God. But I became so upset. I'm like, now if there's God, why, he can't help you? If he's always to see what is happening, why didn't he see that actually I wasn't part of that thing? So I started actually blaming God instead of me accepting my situation and say, well, it has happened. I just need to find a way out of this. Man, but it was so difficult because now I became part of people that have committed, like gruesome offenses, like, killing people and, taking, like real robbers, like people that are really dangerous. So I was actually sleeping with them. And they became my buddies. They became my best friends, that we could talk and we could chat and play some games. And I was taken like in a little room, which was meant for one person, but because there was so many people, so we were sleeping like 6 of us in a small space that can only accommodate one person. And if we are locked up there, our toilet is there, we eat there, everything was there. So even if you are sick in the middle of the night, you want to go to the toilet, they can't come and open because we were all dangerous criminals at that time. But it was also a great opportunity for me to actually learn, even ask them, why did they do that? What happened? We used to have those deep conversations just to try to dig it out. And if they ask me also, just for me to be safe also, I started, speaking also how I staged the robbery, how I used to beat people, just so I can fit in, Because if you say you didn't do it, now everybody's like, but why are you here? So now you're thinking we are crazy. So I had also to become that kind of a guy, making up my stories, how I beat someone, how I used this gun. I've never even held a gun in my entire life. I've never even seen it. But also just making up stories so that they can also, respect me for that matter. So I was there for probably 3-4 years in the condemned section where all those prisoners are. And I think that was the time that actually I had a proper conversation with God. Because there were people that were coming there to preach the good news and stuff like that, but most of the people that were coming there, they were coming with a judgmental type of. It's like when they tell you about Jesus, it's like, first they show a picture that, you are a worst person in the world ever, and you need Jesus. It's like forcing him on your throat. So I didn't really like that approach very well. That's why it took me a little bit of time for me to actually, kind of buy into the stories that we're telling there. Because even before I was sentenced to death, other people were coming, if you just believe in Jesus, right now it's going to set you free, you're going to get out of this place and things like that. So I kind of took a different route, because usually that's what many people believe. It's like nowadays, like if you believe Jesus, then your life is going to be smooth, you're going to be walking in. It doesn't actually happen like that. When you have Jesus in your life, actually, you enter into war. You start fighting against the enemy because he doesn't want you to live the life of Christ, So you enter into war. You have to prepare yourself to keep fighting. It's an everyday battle, the life of Jesus. It's not easy, but it's easy in that Christ will walk with you when you are in that battle. He will always help you fight and overcome. But it's a battle. It's not something that now like, everything is gone. Now I'm good. I'm going to enjoy. So when they were preaching that Christ to me, I'm like, it didn't work until Christ actually himself came and spoke to my heart. One time when I was in a little bit of a trouble, because I was engaged in a fight, and I hit someone so hard, and so I was in trouble for that. And that's actually the time that I came in contact with God, because I actually accepted my fault, to say, Lord, I'm sorry. And from that time, that's when my life changed. Because all this time when I was blaming God, pointing a finger at him, telling him that, he could have done it better, he was actually waiting for me just to humble myself before his presence and say, Lord, I'm sorry for whatever reasons, whatever happened. Maybe I allowed, rebellious to take over into my life that has actually handed me in this place. But I just want you now to come and take over from where, I ended. Pick me up from there so that you can walk with me for the future. And that's where my life started now, because I had so much peace. God was just speaking to my heart, not like the way other people have spoken with God. Other people, they've heard him speak with a loud voice or something like that. But for me, the way he was speaking to me, it's like I've got a question inside of my heart, and then I get the answer that satisfies me. It's like I'm asking God, like, but why is this? Then God says, you need to take, this way. You need to be calm. You need to forgive. You need to, it's having those satisfying answers. That's when I actually found the heart of God. And basically what he taught me was just to learn from every situation, because he was actually going to use it when I get out of that place. It was very difficult for me to believe that, but because I had so much peace in what he promised me, even from reading his word, I had so much peace. I'm like, well, so God is doing it for my better, then I'm going to go for it. And once I joined that little group, I joined the little group in prison, which was like all the condemned prisoners, they used to meet and just to pray and worship. I joined it. I was there for about maybe three weeks. And from nowhere, they chose me to be the chairman of everybody, like just to lead them, to lead them in prayer, to pray for them. If someone is sick right there in the condemned prison, I go and pray for them and they get healed. Then I'm like, man, so it really works, I felt so much, like the faith started growing and growing, because, with a life of faith, it really works, but it takes time to build it. So I think I had enough time to build my faith, even in those calamities, so that, and I also had to rely upon the word of God, read it and take it as it is, without questioning it. If God says he loves us unconditionally, I don't have to doubt. I just have to go for it. And when I do that, then I could feel his life connecting with me. Because sometimes we doubt. Sometimes we think like faith is just something that comes just from nowhere, and today you have muscles, just like when you're gymming, you start with a little bit until you can actually lift those heavy weights. And I think for me, even when I was in the condemned section with all those people, I think that's the time that I built so much muscles in my faith, believing in God and believing in everything that he says. And when I do what he said he's going to do, when I believe it and I practice, and I've seen it happening. Yeah, enough of that story now. So in Zambian courts, there's 3 stages. The first one is the magistrate court that commits you to go to the high court. And the high court, they sentence you. So once they sentence you, then you can appeal to go to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court is the last court that actually confirms your sentence or reduce it according to the truth that they actually found. Supreme Court was the one that now was going to confirm whether I should really hang, die, or I should be set free. I just still believed God to God, whatever you're gonna do, I'll appreciate, because it's not about me. Even here, I can still save you. I can still make a difference. That's the attitude I took. Like, who cares? I'm already here. I might as well just save Jesus. And so when I was in the condemned section there, I had a dream, because now God started using me with dreams. Just as I said now, He was like, the moment I worked on my forgiveness, that's when I allowed the Spirit of God to come and started to use me. So that's when it started. So I used to have dreams. I used to have, interpretation of the Bible in a good way instead of struggling. So God kind of opened my heart and connected with His. So one night I was sleeping and I had a dream that I was being chased by a lot of lions, like many, many, many lions. And there was a lot of other people with me as well. So I started running with them, and I actually outran some of the guys so that the lions, before it catches me, it can, catch the other ones. I was running. So I decided to let me go this way so that the lions can go to the other ones that are actually behind. So to my surprise, all the lions, all of them, I don't know how many they were, they all started, kind of chasing me to where I was running. So I decided to just give up. I'm like, these lions, these so weak people over there, they could have gone to, let them just come and catch me then. So I stood there was some banana leaves. So I was trying to hide there by the banana leaves. Then I just saw all these lions. They became like dogs to me. I was trying to touch it on the head. They were all just like happy and, all around me. And I woke up. So I was bothered. I was praying and asking the Lord in the morning, like, what was that? That was scary. And I'm even going to the Supreme Court. Are they going to confirm me, or am I going to be, then God just said, you are not coming back here. What you are so fearful with, is no longer going to affect you or in any bad way. But you're still going to be, amongst the lions, but you're not going to be damaged, or you're not going to be fearful. That's kind of what I got as interpretation. So I was telling my friends, like, I'm not coming back here anymore. So God spoke with me. So they were laughing like, we've had cases and all that stuff, but I don't know. I'm like, God spoke to me. I'm not coming back here. So we went to the Supreme Court, and I went up there with all my 2 other guys, and the sentence was commuted. So then they looked at me like, man, you were telling us the truth. I'm like, it's because of Jesus. So we are reduced now. We went to life imprisonment, and after a few days, they said it was not life. It was actually 20 years. I'm like, man, I was rejoicing. People were thinking that I was mad. They're like, how can this guy is rejoicing for 20 years, I'm like, you don't know what I've gone through. This is like a piece of cake for me, because now at least I can see, towards the end. And I never quit, trusting Jesus, because He actually came for me, and He showed me that actually I can do it. So I lived my life just, trusting the Lord and becoming a good leader. And I was made now like a senior prisoner, taking care of the small pet crimes, like the people that are fighting inside. Before they are taken to the authority, they have to come through my little office and see who was at fault. And basically, it's like the life of Joseph, which I didn't. When I was growing up, I loved the story of Joseph, and I was like, yeah, I'm Joseph. I was even calling myself as a Joseph, but I didn't know exactly that I was actually, inviting the life of Joseph into my heart or into my life. So when all these things were happening, it was like, man, just like Joseph, man. So I became a leader there, and They kept on promoting me from one to another, from one to another. You know, I was just so peaceful. And even the other prisoners could see. That's why they now kind of allowed me to be their leader, like instantly like this. You know, so when God chooses you for a particular reason or ministry, you don't have to wait for many years of experience, because it's now no longer you that is living, but Christ inside of you. So he kind of just started giving me ideas of prayers and, you know, what to do, what to preach and all that stuff. So I started right there, and I was so very excited to just enjoy and, you know, being with so many evil people that have done so bad, actually in bringing them back to the cross, you know, taking them back to, you know, to the life of Jesus. And many gave their lives to Jesus even during that time, which was awesome.
Have you ever been falsely accused? Naturally, one tries to explain your innocence, but when you realize that the accusing party rejects your explanation, it is then that anger and a feeling of helplessness enter your mind. If you are a Christian, you may even ask, but why, God? Elijah experienced all these emotions, and he even got to a point where he blamed God for his situation. Because of his perceived hopelessness, he began to live a lie for the sake of fitting in. Fortunately, by the grace of God, there was a watershed moment when the Holy Spirit gave Elijah the mind of an Apostle Paul. Hear what Paul said in 2 Timothy 1 verses 11 and 12. And God chose me to be a preacher, an apostle, and a teacher of the good news. That is why I am suffering here in prison. But I am not ashamed of it, for I know the one in whom I trust, and I am sure that he is able to guard what I have entrusted to him until the day of his return. My friend, do you perhaps feel that you are being held captive by something that you may or may not have control over? If so, I want to advise you to apply Matthew 6:33. Seek the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and he will give you everything you need. Please tune in next week to hear the outcome of this story.